And take 2.
Well, in the last video we talked about one of Weinstein's big awards race horses, and here's another one. Both are fueled by race in one way or another.
Yeah.
Our first movie is going to be Fruitvale Station. Sorry.
I've called it both.
It actually got the Fruitvale Station name change a while back, so I should be used to it by now. Well, if you don't know, it's obviously the that was condescending. Yeah. Well, if you don't know this, it's obvious.
Yes. Condescend, patronize.
It's the last day of 2008, and Oscar Grant is trying to get his life back together. He's going to try to stop dealing drugs. He's going to propose to his girlfriend. He's going to take care of his daughter. He's going to see about getting a job. And
he's not going to be a bum anymore, basically.
But he was killed at Fruitvale Station. Well, not. He was shot at Fruitvale Station. He died in the hospital the morning after.
Yes.
And this movie's getting a big reaction. It's been getting a big reaction. It won the top prize at Sundance. And there was a whole bunch of buzz around it. And then when it finally came out, pretty much every single person that goes to see it leaves crying. Which we witnessed firsthand.
Yeah.
We only saw it with like 4 people, but those 4 people left crying.
Yes, they definitely did.
We didn't have time to cry because we had 2 more movies to do that day.
And I had to take that walk to McDonald's, too, in between.
Yeah, 90-degree weather.
Not my fault it was so hot outside.
So anyway, Oscar is played by Michael B. Jordan, who was, apparently he's famous for The Wire, which I never watched.
The HBO television program, The Wire.
Yes, a Cedar Rapids joke.
Yes.
But, obviously, for the longest time I called him the guy from Chronicle. And of course, a lot of people love making the joke that, obviously the B's in there because he'd go by the name Michael Jordan.
Oh, God, I didn't even think about that, honestly.
Yeah, when did Michael Jordan come out of retirement to become an actor and all that shit? Anyway,
that makes me dislike him more now.
So anyway, and you have Octavia Spencer, who everybody's in love with now because of The Help.
Yep.
As his mom. You have Melanie Diaz, who is in a bunch of things, like A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, and I think Raising Victor Vargas, I think she might have been in. His name, I don't know how he got to this status. I mean, he's in a lot of movies now, but I don't know how he got to this status. If you look at the poster, the original poster,
okay.
Kevin Durant is 3rd credited. He gets an above the title credit. Kevin Durant's in this movie for 2 minutes. He and Chad Michael Murray are the cops. What happened was, he was on the train, and so, well, we get a flashback of him in prison in 2007, and we learn that he has an enemy in there because apparently he's a snitch.
Yeah.
I guess that's how he ended up in prison too, I don't know. I never researched him before watching the movie, but basically this guy is his enemy. And then when they're on the train on New Year's Eve in 2008, somebody calls out to him, and this guy that he made enemies with also happens to be on the train. I can't tell if it was the same guy or if it was like a guy that was in the crew of that guy or what.
Yeah, he basically, it was like he was under his turf. That's the reason why he called him out, and he called him out on the train.
And then
starts
a fight broke
craziness.
out, but of course, because Oscar and it supposedly, well, you know, it turns into kind of a race thing. Yep. Supposedly it's because Oscar and all his friends were black. Kevin Durant and Chad Michael Murray, who play the cops, come in and take everybody off the train that was in Oscar's group, but not the ones that instigated the fight.
Yep.
And then while they're holding them on the station all night, a ruckus happens and a scuffle, and the cop claims he thought the gun was his taser because they have those taser guns.
Yeah.
And he shot Oscar in the back with his actual gun. And that's what happened. Well, let's see. Where do we start talking about this?
Well, it's funny because Kevin Durant, well, I'll go backpedal here. Kevin Durant, basically, he comes off like a big jerk. He's a complete jerk. He's like pushing everybody around. But the second this happens, he's right up in Chad Michael Murray's face like, what did you do?
Yeah, obviously we're not going to bother with spoilers. You might as well put spoiler in parentheses, even though it's obvious.
Yeah.
He actually goes onto Oscar actually tries to get back on the train. They split up,
Mm-hmm.
and Oscar goes back on the train and tries to kind of be incognito, but Kevin Durant literally goes onto the train and drags him out by his neck.
Yep.
And if you you may have seen the real footage that's on YouTube. I had a morbid curiosity, so I looked one day, and that real footage is actually the first scene of the movie. And it cuts to black when we hear the gunshot, and then we start with his day.
Yep.
So yeah, it's basically considered it's probably going to be the breakout indie movie. There's always one movie at Sundance that breaks out and is like really talked about and does well in the award season.
It does well in the mainstream too, because it gets brought into the mainstream because of its curiosity.
Yeah, it had a massive expansion there
for
a while, which is how we ended up with it. Even though it was 45 minutes away, we still ended up with it. But,
exactly.
You know, that counts.
Yes, it does.
Let me go on and say, I do like this movie a lot, and I think it really accomplishes what it sets out to. Having said that, I need to critique it for a minute.
Of course.
Obviously, if you I don't know, some of you who may know, like, they start off with the real footage, of course, but people who don't know the story might think maybe he survives, because a large portion of the ending is him in the hospital, and they don't know if he's going to live or not.
Yeah.
Well, but you know something bad's going to happen to him when he gets to the train station, because you've seen the opening scene. And they really lay it on thick a lot that something really sad is about to happen to him. So they pile on as much sad things as they can, like the scenes with his daughter and everybody telling him to be safe, and his mom being the one that tells him to take the train. And it's like the scene at the end when his mom is identifying him in the morgue behind the window.
Yeah.
It could have settled in with us, because we know that scene when they were washing dishes.
Mm-hmm.
We know she's the one that told him to take the train.
Of course.
But they really pound in the sadness when she's standing behind the window and is repeating the lines while weeping. I was the one that told him to take the train.
She's blaming herself for it.
I think they laid that on a little. Maybe that's how she really reacted. The thing was Ryan Coogler, who wrote it. I don't know who he talked. I'm guessing he talked to everybody involved.
I'd say so.
Because he claims that, with the exception of the scene with the dog at the gas station, every single thing that happens in the movie is exactly how it really happened. I don't know.
I don't think the movie as it would have been made the exact way if they did not have the cooperation of people involved. There's no way they could have got away with that.
Well, talking about the scene with the dog at the gas station, that was also laying it on a little thick, because I think they had plenty of drama as it was. Just to make him more... I'm not saying that he was... I'm trying to be careful. Obviously, I didn't know Oscar Grant, and not, like, you know, a lot of people that see this movie will have known him personally, but...
Of course.
So it's hard to tell if he was as saintly as the movie portrays him. I guess I'm trying to cover my bases before I say this thing about the dog. But what I'm saying is, what he says is, they tried to make it like he was really, really saintly. Like, with the dog, how he's really nice to it because it's a stray, it doesn't have a collar. And then he helps it when it eventually gets hit by a car and dies.
Yeah. They're just laying everything on really thick.
But, you know, it doesn't, you know, taint it, like, horribly. Like, it didn't leave, you know,
leave a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, when the movie is over, I don't really, you know, think about it.
No, not at all.
Somebody brought up a very interesting point, and I don't know how I feel about it personally.
What would that be?
They were, somebody was critiquing the movie, and they said they thought the ending was jarring in a narrative perspective.
Okay.
Because the whole movie, almost from beginning to end, follows Oscar.
Yeah.
Like, from his perspective. And he's in he's in every scene, pretty much.
Yeah.
But then they thought it was a weird shift in point of view when suddenly, for obvious reasons, he's not in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we suddenly shift to his family's point of view. I didn't really feel too much of a shift.
What direction would you go in that? I mean, he's laying in a bed. He's probably going to die any second now. I mean, what could you do with his character?
I think there is a good enough transition in the scene right after he's shot, when we kind of follow Melanie Diaz's perspective on things.
Yes.
After it's happened. And then she calls Octavia Spencer and they go from there.
And she calms everyone down because everybody's crazy. Like, we're going to get those police right now.
I think that little segment right there was the transition.
Yeah, I'd say that would be the
From
case.
one perspective to another. Which I understand it still can be jarring because the entire first over an hour was Oscar's perspective and now we're doing it at the end. But
True.
It probably wouldn't have helped too much dramatically if you had just stayed on Oscar being operated on, because he was operated on all night.
Yeah.
So you'd have to shift it to his family's perspective.
And then him and getting operated on in the room, and I'm sure there are people that that actually dealt through this entire situation that were on set or had knowing about the source material since they were a part of it. I'm sure they probably didn't want those scenes into the movie because it'd be a little too close to real life, because that's exactly what really happened. So I can understand why you wouldn't show stuff in the hospital room.
Yeah, and then where's what do you think of Michael B. Jordan as an actor?
I don't know much about his filmography.
It's basically The Wire and Chronicle.
I've never seen The Wire. I am not a fan of Chronicle. I'll just throw that out there. I did not like the movie. I don't know why. I just didn't like the movie.
It was in my top 10.
I know it was, and I absolutely didn't like it. In this movie, he's good. I like the portrayal. We're playing a real person, you really have to live up to those expectations of how that person really was.
Here's the thing with me was I didn't really know exactly how to judge it, his performance.
How's that?
Because he doesn't really exactly have, big moments or anything.
No, he doesn't.
So you just kind of, I guess what you have to do is you have to sit back and realize that, as I said, he's in almost every scene of this movie. So what you feel about the movie as a whole is pretty much riding on his shoulders.
And he doesn't eat the scenery either. He actually delivers a good performance.
So what the critics love to say, quiet and subtle and nuanced, or whatever other word you want to use.
I use eat the scenery. I win.
I believe Leonard Maltin said about Nicolas Cage in Deadfall, he not only chewed the scenery, he ate it and then threw it up.
No, I really like this movie a lot, and I don't know. I mean, by the end of the year, I don't know if it's gonna be in my top 10 of the year, but it's definitely one of the ones that I really enjoyed.
It still hasn't fully sank in with me.
It's a little too short.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to have gone maybe 15, 20 minutes longer.
When the credits start, it's an hour and 19 minutes in.
Good God.
That's it.
And I'm not an Octavia Spencer fan. I know you're not either, but I mean, she wasn't horrible in this movie. She worked her character like she was supposed to. She had to be the caring mom.
And there are moments where in a fictional movie it would probably feel like too much. Like it was trying to be overly, you will cry, I will make you cry. But
yes.
But to know that it really happened, like the particular scene where
I'll choke a puppy in front of your face to see water works.
When the flashback in the prison when she's visiting him, and then she says that she's not going to visit him anymore.
Yeah.
And she's starting to leave, and he's like begging her at least for a hug before she leaves, but she won't. She just keeps walking away.
Then they drag him away because he's basically having a fit at this point.
And then that comes to bite her at the end when, after she's identified him in the morgue, she asks to hug him one more time, and she can't because he's a crime scene.
Yep. This has now been deemed a homicide. Gets really dark at the end too. I mean, you have all these nice things that are happening. He's trying to get himself back like to normal. He's trying to reconcile with his with his girl, with his daughter, and everything is going great, and then, of course,
you get that sense of everybody loves him. Like,
you know that something bad's about to happen.
Like when he goes to the school to drop his daughter off, the teacher is all friendly with him. And then when he goes to pick her up, he like hangs out at the playground before they race back to the car and all that.
Yeah.
He's like the all-American dad.
That was a cool scene too. I like that too. It's like, I'm gonna race you back from the room, and he's like, I always cheat and I always win.
Yeah, it's like the I forget what game they said they were playing. It was another scene in the prison when they were talking about how
Candyland?
Melody Diaz and Octavia Spencer were playing. That's the way.
That's way back.
We're playing a game with her, and they let her win, and he said, I never let her win.
Monopoly? That's also way back.
But there was also, I know this is just, just a very, very small thing, but this kind of thing just irked me just a little bit.
Alright.
It's just a very small mistake.
Why does that not surprise you?
The prison scene is set in 2007.
Okay.
And Octavia Spencer says that she's telling a story about when the daughter was talking about when her and her dad went to see Wally. And Wally came out in 2008.
Yeah, it did.
but whatever. That happens again in Lovelace. I'll get to that in a minute. People need to know the years of their movies before they put them in there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You need fact checkers, people.
yeah, I'd say this movie is ultimately earning its praise because you can look back from a distance and critique it for the things I'm critiquing it for, but when you watch the movie itself, you don't feel that.
No, not at all.
Which one?
You're able to invest yourself enough to where that doesn't happen, and that's a credit to the movie. So,
True.
And then the anger it gets out of people when we see the text that says that the cop that shot him was only sentenced to 2 years, then only actually served 11 months. They changed it from murder to manslaughter, which is really weird to me because doesn't manslaughter sound like more of a horrific word?
It really does.
Yet it's the slighter offense, I mean.
Well, either way, you're still going to jail for quite a bit, so. But apparently not if you're a cop. In this world, I guess.
But it's hard to see. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because you can debate all day long whose fault it is.
Yep. And people have.
You can say it's nobody's fault. You can say it's they have the same where you don't know what the point of it is for a while, except it's just to make him all saintly again.
Of course.
Where he helps the girl at the supermarket with her fish fry.
And that's who ends up talking to him in the subway at the end of it.
She's the one that called his name and got his attention drawn to him. You could say it's the one guy's fault for fighting with him. You can say it's... The big question is whether or not you believe I thought my gun was my taser.
There's no way. Even if you are, temporarily, lost your mind, you know what the difference of what a gun feels like and what a taser feels like.
I would understand if it was one of these tasers, but it was a taser gun. And there was a lot of hullabaloo going on.
Yeah, but no.
I'm not defending anything. I'm just throwing.
There's options on both defenses. I totally understand where you're coming from, but I don't. A gun would feel a little bit different than a taser would feel, even a taser gun.
Did they do surely he had some kind of background check. If he's not done anything like this before and hasn't since. I don't know.
We don't know what happened to him now, so.
Yeah, so
we know he just got cast by Chad Michael Murray to play him in a movie.
So yeah, it's
based on real life.
I know most people think it was a race thing, but I suppose you could take a whole bunch of things into account.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it was played up like that, especially with Kevin Durant's character on the subway dragging him out by his neck.
Yeah, and Kevin Durant drops some N-words.
Yeah, he does.
So yeah, so that obviously throws it in a race direction.
Without question.
The cop played by Chad Michael Murray that did it, we don't really see him do much of anything.
But you see Durant snap back into reality whenever Michael B. Jordan is shot. So when Oscar's laying there dying on the ground, he's the one that cradles him and everything and holds him while he...
Keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Exactly. So he basically completely changes... It's like Crash. Something can happen in a split second that could change your opinion on the person that you...
You're saying Kevin Durant is Matt Dillon?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure Kevin Durant would appreciate me saying that, too.
Yeah, because Matt Dillon got an Oscar nomination for that movie.
Yes, he did. A very deserved one as well.
You can tell, I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant, I think I read somewhere Kevin Durant used to play hockey. And you can tell
He looks like it.
He's massive.
He looks like a worker, too.
He was a good casting as Torval in Cosmopolis.
I agree. I love Cosmopolis. That's a movie everyone slept on, so...
So yeah, that's obviously this movie will spark debate and discussion and
like it has.
emotions.
Yes.
So that certainly sets out what it needs to do. So
it's quite a ride, and it's not very like AJ said, it's not even an hour and a half long. So
a lot of people consider it an important movie too. Harvey Weinstein just so happened to release it the same weekend as the Trayvon Martin trial verdict.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
Just to add on to the timeliness of it.
It definitely.
A lot of people say that was just kind of a sleazy move to get Oscar love, but...
Well, you can't really say what Harvey Weinstein does is sleazy, but... well... it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
Alright, let's go on to our next movie, which is Lovelace. Which, apparently, it got a lot of press.
I remember seeing a lot of press for it.
Like, everybody involved in it was doing the talk show circuit.
When they had the first talks that it was going to be Lindsay Lohan playing Linda Lovelace, and then that fell through, and then Amanda Seyfried came on.
She basically got fired.
Oh, yeah.
And they were going to do that other one called Inferno with Malin Ackerman, but apparently that seems to have been dropped. I don't know. I haven't seen any sign of it for a while.
My job here is to lurk and research.
Alright, so basically this is the... it's told from an interesting perspective that it doesn't really give the vibe of. I didn't know this going in. Lovelace is told from two different perspectives.
I think, you
kind of like not exactly like sliding doors,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe if you had to think of something to compare it to.
Okay.
It plays out one way. The whole movie does, and then she's about to release her book. But before the book can be released, her editor suggests she do a polygraph test.
Yeah.
And while she's doing this polygraph test, it's the story all over again, but the real version.
Oh, nice.
And it's obviously the main focus is her marriage to Chuck Traynor, who's played by Sarsgaard.
Nice.
Peter Sarsgaard.
Sears Market served wine.
And he's
refrigerators is GE, Whirlpool, LG.
basically their marriage is very, very happy and very, fairy tale like.
Yeah.
But then they're out of money, so he suggests, basically, through a chain reaction, she ends up in porn.
Yeah.
He's like, he knows Hank Azaria's character, who is, Hank Azaria's playing the director of Deep Throat. And Bobby Cannavale's there, too. Hopefully soon to be Emmy winner for Boardwalk Empire.
He'll talk Emmy somewhere down the road.
But then you see the second half of the story, and we see what was really going on and how it was. There's one particular scene where it's like Chris Noth and Hank Azaria and Bobby Cannavale all in this one room, and we hear a banging against the wall, and they're like, "What's that sound?" It's like it's Chuck and Linda, and they're bawling in there. But then in the second story, the same scene happens, and we see it's actually Chuck banging her against the wall. So, this movie is mainly known for its, but one of the things that really grabbed people's attention for this movie was the insanely long cast list.
Yeah.
That I actually had to write down, so I didn't look over anybody. Her parents are played by Sharon Stone and Robert Patrick.
Whoa.
And I didn't recognize Sharon Stone until like the very end.
So she does not look like herself at all?
Yeah, she didn't go completely incognito like, say, the end of Alba Dog, but
yeah.
And Robert Patrick is one of those ones where he's the quiet dad, but then he has one big scene. It's basically the scene where she decides to get out of porn. She's calling her mom, and he answers, and they're just having a normal conversation, and then he starts to break down. And when she asks him what's wrong, he says he saw Deep Throat.
Oh.
That's a really good scene for Robert Patrick. A very underrated actor.
Very much so.
He is more than just the T-1000 people.
Well,
Her best friend Patsy is played by Juno Temple, who is
if it
she doesn't really have much of a point. She's just kind of there to be a best friend character, but she eventually kind of fades out of the story.
It starts with a
Chris Noth has a big part. He's like this. I can't remember exactly what he does, but he's like a power figure,
Okay.
and he eventually helps her, you know, in her troubles. I mentioned Cannavale and Hank Azaria and Noth already, but Adam Brody's performance is very interesting.
Exactly.
He plays porn star Harry Reams. He's got the mustache, and has a dialogue with her about how his name was going to be Harry Dick at first. But then he eventually changed it to that, and they do they recreate the scenes from Deep Throat, and I don't know the accuracy of that because I haven't seen Deep Throat. I saw the documentary Inside Deep Throat,
Yeah.
but not the movie itself. That's all I knew about it. And an interesting piece of casting, he was originally cast as Chuck Traynor, but obviously being busy, he had to take the smaller part. James Franco plays Hugh Hefner.
That seems like a role he was born to play.
He's actually not in it that much, but he's there.
I am reading the Inferno cast list right now, and it's funny we were mentioning Crash a little bit ago, and Matt Dillon. He's the one who plays Chuck Traynor.
Also, it is on still.
Supposedly, it's supposed to come out later this year.
Yeah.
I know.
Eric Roberts has a small part as the guy that's giving her the polygraph test.
Nice.
Then we have one scene with Wes Bentley, who's just a photographer taking pictures of her.
How appropriate.
Beauty. You're not quite a plastic bag, Amanda Seyfried. And there is if you think it was funny that Matthew Fox was in World War Z and got a credit for it,
Yeah.
Chloe Sevigny is on the cast list.
Really?
She is on screen for like one frame I believe her actual credit is feminist journalist.
What?
And that's it. She has like one line in one frame, and she's gone.
Well, enjoy.
And Debbie Mazar plays another one of the porn stars.
Nice.
And Sarah Jessica Parker shot a cameo, but her scene was cut. It was going to be played by Demi Moore, but then she had a scheduling conflict. She was replaced by Sarah Jessica Parker. The scene ended up getting cut anyway.
They just didn't want that scene in there. It doesn't matter who was on it.
Yeah. We'll talk about Amanda Seyfried. She's getting a lot of raves, actually. She got raves out of Sundance, and people who've seen the movie are raving her, but I'm going to say I think she was miscast.
Really?
I think she plays up the innocence a little too much, and she just seems, I don't know, she doesn't really look like Linda Lovelace.
Mm-hmm.
She's, I don't know. I just didn't think it was that. I think there would have been better cast. I don't know who, don't ask, but I think there would have been better casting choices if they had looked. I mean, her scenes are okay. Like, if she were, I would think it was, I don't know. If she wasn't playing a real person, I don't know. Of course, I know nothing about Linda Lovelace, so I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I.
I don't know her accuracy, but she felt miscast.
Okay.
The star of the movie to me was Peter Sarsgaard, who is, as usual, great.
Yes.
He's always been extremely underrated, and he's continuing to show it now. The way he's able to, make Chuck two completely different characters in these two separate stories. Well, a lot of people complain that he's doing his same old creepy thing that he started with in Boys Don't Cry. But, yeah. If John Lauder hadn't been sentenced to death, he might have become Chuck Traynor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or the other way around. But, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Then Adam Brody's really entertaining. Hank Azaria is there more than you might think, and he's entertaining as well. He's got the haircut and all that. Chris Noth has that imposing way about him that really works for this character. It's like his it's like if Mr. Big was like a badass.
That's interesting to try to put it that way.
something that was a little distracting, I guess. I might sound like I'm reaching here, but I just happened to notice it. You look at movies like Forrest Gump, and the way they put Hanks in like the old grainy footage,
Yeah.
how flawless it was.
Of course.
Well, you get shots of like the 70s movie theaters, and then you see Deep Throat, as played by Amanda Seyfried and Adam Brody.
Oh.
And it's like they're in the 70s, but this looks like some high-def theater, the way they've imposed it.
That's not good.
And then when they, the interview at the very end, when she's promoting her book, they have, it appears to be the real interview with Amanda Seyfried, imposed in it, over Linda Lovelace. And you can tell what's the real footage and what's this HD Amanda Seyfried footage.
Oh, wow.
Put in. So it could have worked on that from a technical standpoint, you know. But yeah, I think it's fine though. Sarsgaard really carries it. He's kind of got that supporting credit because Amanda Seyfried is the poster and she's Lovelace and all that, but Sarsgaard is a leading character.
Okay.
And his performance really keeps it afloat.
As he should be.
When you think it might be going into cliche territory, he manages to elevate it to more than that a little bit. So yeah, it's all right. It's watchable. Yeah. So we'll go on to a much happier movie, which is the happiest movie in this group.
Yeah, easily.
The Way Back, which was written and directed by Nat Faxon and Jim Rash, who won Oscars for co-writing The Descendants. And you'll know most people know Jim Rash from Community and Nat Faxon from the Broken Lizard movies.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, have they always had this friendship? And they just happened to be working on these movies, or did it start with The Descendants? I have no idea.
I think they actually have, it goes way before that. I
would think so.
I think I might have, I don't know, and I'm not looking at it, but I think they might have been friends since college or something like that.
This is basically a who's who of character actors that everyone loves in one movie.
Yeah, this is awesome.
The plot is basically, it's another coming-of-age movie. But it's one that manages to avoid, it doesn't avoid cliches, but it kind of takes cliches and uses them to their advantage.
Yes.
Skillfully.
Very much so.
It's this kid, I think this is his first movie.
They probably met in the Groundlings, because they're both original members of the Groundlings in 2004.
That would probably make sense.
So, yeah. There you go. They met in the Groundlings.
It's this kid, I think it's his first movie. I think his name is William James.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going on a vacation to this house with his mom, who's played by Toni Collette, and her boyfriend, who's played by Steve Carell. Very, very different Steve Carell.
Oh, yeah.
The opening scene of the movie sets off how much Trent, who is Carell's character, is a douchebag.
Yes.
And as Jim Rash said in his Reddit AMA that this actually happened to him when he was a kid. Carell's character, the very first scene of the movie is Carell says, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think it would be? And the kid doesn't want to answer. He's like, come on, you need to know what you think of yourself. It's a confidence thing. You just answer the question. 1 out of 10, what are you? And he says, I don't know. A 6, I guess. And Carell very straightforward says, really? I think you're a 3. And I would... It's funny that it's of course that Jim Rash would write something related to this, because that would be like traumatizing to your self-esteem.
No lie.
So once they get there, we meet Allison Janney, who is like the local alcoholic.
Yes.
A lot of people accuse her of playing this part multiple times before. Going back to American Beauty, not the same character, but she was in American Beauty, is why I say that. Her character in American Beauty hardly has any lines at all, and she's really confined, and in this she's anything but.
Her character in 10 Things, if she was an alcoholic.
So, and she has a daughter that's Anna Sophia Robb, and of course, this will be the coming-of-age love story.
Yep.
Literally the girl next door story. And then he finds Steve Carell and Toni Collette always hang out with these drunks played by Rob Corddry and Amanda Peet.
Yes.
and they make a ruckus all night and stay up all night. So he finds a getaway by going to a water park that's run by Sam Rockwell and Maya Rudolph.
Yep.
And straight out of Sundance, Sam Rockwell was getting raised for this movie. Because Sam Rockwell pretty much gets raised all the time, but the trouble is he still remains at this underrated status for some reason.
No one ever campaigns him. Moon. Like when they wouldn't campaign him for Moon, that's what started it right there.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Confessions of a Dangerous
Snow
Mind.
Angels, it goes on and on. But, the first movie I saw him in was Charlie's... No, technically the first movie I saw him in was the Ninja Turtles movie. He was head thug.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Regular menthol.
Yes.
The first movie I saw him in where I was like, who is that guy? And I looked up his name, was Charlie's Angels.
I can honestly tell you, I did not see the Charlie's Angels movies.
Either one?
No.
That's weird. Anyway.
Yeah, I know.
And it basically turns into a much cleaner version of Adventureland.
Yeah, without...
The script was R-rated, but they cut it down to be PG-13. Okay, that's the plot. Now I want to talk about Steve Carell for a second. He's got the, normally, when you're an actor known for comedy, and you have a beard in an indie movie, it means you're going to be a little serious.
Yep.
Wow. Here's an example. To go the ironic route. Steve Carell on The Way, Way Back is Greg Kinnear in Little Miss Sunshine.
Yes. That is absolutely correct.
He becomes the character that picked on him in Little Miss Sunshine.
What happens, people? You become what you hate the most.
And and there's this subplot where he may or may not be having an affair with Amanda Peet behind Rob Corddry and Toni Collette.
Well, he definitely is.
Toni Collette's also great in this movie.
Yeah.
But I would... Not to overshadow her great performance in this, but if I had to choose one of her performances this year, I'd go with Mental. But both are great. The kid is convincing, like he has to do his thing basically.
He's good.
You want to go into Rockwell now?
Yeah. Speaking of Adventureland,
everybody comes out of this movie either talking about Steve Carell going against type or Rockwell in general.
Yeah.
I would guess that most of what Rockwell says is ad-libbed.
Yes.
And, it's just from the beginning of his screen time to the end of it. Like the scene where he's walking through the park and he's saying, like, all the statistics of it.
Yeah.
He's just talking really fast and all that. And then the scene with, his first scene with Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And, the kids get stuck in the slide. And he says the I Need a Hero lyrics. And then they're all baffled. So he says, did you not see Footloose with Kevin Bacon? They're playing chicken with tractors? How'd the remake? Anybody see the remake? Even though the remake does not have that scene.
We're the only ones in the theater laughing at this point.
Yeah, the older people that were in there with us said they didn't know what to think of the movie itself.
Yeah.
I guess it's because, you know, not to get on their case for being old people or anything, but it is a movie about a very young teenager coming of age.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess
why did you go to the movie? You should have known what you were getting yourself into.
Yeah, it's consistently hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny.
While also being able to bring those dramatic moments. You have Allison Janney being the worst mom in the world because the kid has, like, the wandering eye. She makes him wear an eye patch and she says, like, I told you if you don't wear the eye patch, you make people look awkward. Feel awkward.
Feel awkward.
Nat Faxon and Jim Rash are both in the movie.
Yeah.
As employees. Jim Rash particularly has a good running joke where he basically keeps quitting and then coming back. You know, they have this big going away party for him, and in the very last scene of the movie, yeah, I'm still here.
He reminds me of, like, J.P. Minot by way of Kip Dynamite.
Oh my god.
I know, I said it, I told you in the theater too. And he's really funny too, because he's the one that stands behind the desk and he has to talk to everyone. And Nat Faxon is hilarious in this movie too.
Hold
it. And his name is Roddy in this movie. And
yeah, he works at the slide and he's basically perverted.
yes.
To make a long story short.
He just basically just makes people stand there so he can ogle them and then, okay, you can go.
But yeah, this movie's made a lot of friends. Like, pretty much everybody that sees this movie leaves with something positive to say about it.
It's really funny, really
Nice.
well done.
What it does best is it takes a very cliched story,
Mhm.
riddled with cliches, but
Yeah.
manages to point them in the right direction and makes them all work out. It's not, on the surface, it's by the numbers, but underneath it's,
So much filler,
yeah.
so much more. Long day.
So, and like I said, amidst movies like Fruitvale Station, you know, it rises the spirits quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's a feel good movie. We'll say that. We'll go with that cliche. It's the feel good movie of the year. It actually might be. Actually,
I would say it's definitely in the running, without question.
Yeah. So yeah.
I dug this movie tremendously.
Yeah.
Laughed absolutely throughout almost the whole thing. It's definitely one of the best comedies of the year, without question. But it's got all the heart that you would expect from it as well.
Considering we're about to go into Oscar bait land from September to December, it'll probably stay one of the best comedies of the year.
I'd say easily. There's really not much competition for it right now.
Alright, our next movie's totally different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get the cast list up. Give me a second.
It's Sundance, and normally it's called Crystal Fairy. However, on a lot of movie sites, it's Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus. But if you watch the movie, the title that comes up is Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus in 2012.
Yep.
Alright. It's from the same director as Magic. I can't remember which one came first, but he and Michael Cera shot one of these while waiting to finance the other one.
Okay.
They might have shot... I'm not even going to guess, because I'll be wrong. It'll be the other one.
He shot one, and for the other one, there you go. Problem solved.
The story of this... well, we started this party that he's at with these guys. And I guess they're planning a road trip to find this cactus.
That's where the magic cactus thing comes in.
That he keeps calling it something, but I forget what he calls it. But anyway, what they do, apparently, is they, like, cook it for, like, 9 hours, and then they drink it on the beach. And it gets them high, basically. And he is just dead set on doing this. The guys, like, are kind of for it, and kind of, you know... But he's way excited for it. But the trouble is at this party, he meets Crystal Fairy, who is this hardcore hippie played by Gabby Hoffman.
Yeah.
You might know as the girl from Uncle Buck and Field of Dreams. But she's the young Demi Moore in Now and Then. Needless to say, she's grown up.
Yes. Indeed.
I'm just going to say it. By that, I mean she spends half her screen time doing full throttle nudity.
Yep.
And it's, she earns the nickname Crystal Harry that they call her throughout the rest of the movie. Now that we're past that awkwardness, I can continue. And she tags along with them on this trip, and they're going from house to house trying to, these people have these cacti planted in their yard. And he's trying to they're driving around trying to convince people to sell them one, but nobody will. He eventually resorts to just stealing it while they distract her. Well, they're just kind of sitting and talking with her, and he goes out and steals it without their knowledge. There are some... I want to say this... I believe it won Best Director in the World Cinema portion of Sundance. There's dramatic, there's documentary, and there's world cinema.
Okay.
Okay. I think it won director is what I saw. Okay. This movie is really weird.
San Pedro cactus. I was trying to find it the whole time you were talking.
I don't even know where to start with this movie. It's so weird. It reminded me of Ichimama Tambian.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's got a lot of that in it. Nudity, beaches, everything, road trips. It's
Craziness.
Surely it was influenced by it. And there are just these weird random moments. Like, I didn't really know what the plot was when we sat down. I was just going to watch it and see what happened.
It's always good to do that sometimes.
there's this weird moment where they're at a convenience store. And I don't remember what was happening in the scene. Michael Cera had gotten a drink, like coffee.
Mm.
And then he came outside and he kind of stood in the middle of nowhere waiting for them to come out of the convenience store.
Yeah.
And suddenly we just hear this horror score, like something really, really dooming is about to happen. And then the scene just ends, and nothing becomes of that.
Yeah.
And then there's the scene with like the little figurine or whatever it was they passed by.
Yeah.
And like there's this flash, like some horror movie flash of like evil, and it's kind of creepy when it happens.
Oh, I mean, the scene that just came out of nowhere, this like really creepy like face or whatever you see, and then that's the end of it.
And that never comes back either.
Nope, not a bit.
I don't know if they're just trying to do this dooming foreshadowing or what's going on.
Or you really need to be high to watch this movie.
I don't know. But then, I mean, it is kind of a nice story with their relationship with her, though. Because at first, they're really, really annoyed with her. Because she's, like, this hardcore hippie, and she's, like, you know, just has these annoying ways about doing things. They can't drink unless they have the crystals in them. I don't know.
Most of the dialogue was improvised.
I'm not surprised. But then, you know, they start to warm up to her, and then it actually turns into this nice story of friendship, really.
Yeah.
Which makes I won't say what happens, but it makes the ending sad.
Very much so.
Think about it. That's the thing, though, is this guy, Sebastian Silva, I think is his name. His endings are weird. I think he needs to work on the endings of his movies, because both Magic and this kind of go, and then they just stop in a weird place. Both of them did it. Magic had somewhat of an ending. This one...
Not so much.
And you kind of start to... You don't really know what's going on with her through the whole movie. Because, she may or may not be a fraud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Her name is Crystal Fairy. At one point she says her name is Isabel.
And she drops
to a stranger.
Where she sounds completely different when she says it to a stranger, too.
And then there's this early scene where we get a hint of it, where they're in a convenience store, and she's like throwing a hissy fit because they can't have anything unhealthy. They can't have sugar. They can't have anything. They can't have anything sweet. Absolutely nothing. And then the next morning, just as they're about to leave, she's like eating cereal and drinking Coke.
Yep. She eat right as they walk out of the room.
And then that doesn't come back for a while, but you know, we get a hint at it pretty early that she may not be what she seems. We also have no idea when this movie is set.
No.
Because apparently it takes place before 2012, because they're talking about, you know, the possibility of 2012 being the end of the world.
Yes.
I have no idea when the movie's actually set. I could not get a grasp on that.
It might be early in 2012, because they're thinking about the end of the year being the end of the world, possibly.
Yeah, this,
It's an interesting ride.
I'm not sure who I'd recommend this to. Art house crowds.
That's the only people that would watch this movie.
Maybe. It's not a bad movie by any means.
No, not at all.
And it's, you know, it's got plenty of nice scenes and all that, and it's got a lot of humor, too.
There's way too much in it that would make it not favorable to any mainstream audience.
Does it even have a rating?
Let me check.
Because there were,
I would not be surprised if it does not.
Yeah, those dominatrix pictures were...
They were very graphic.
Yeah,
I don't
think those are allowed in an R-rated movie.
Let's check it out.
It would say at the very top.
98 minutes, adventure comedy.
Nope, that's usually where the rating is.
It is not rated. Well, hold on. No. Nope, not rated.
That's funny, by the way, because there was like some dude in there with like his mom or something.
Yeah.
She was a lot older than he was, and I imagine they were a son and mother or some kind of thing.
That's what it seemed like.
But they seem to be having a good time. So,
yeah.
You know, I think another more sheltered people might feel very awkward watching this alone, let alone with a family member.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know what else to say about Crystal Fairy. It is what it is.
Apparently, if you believe this, I don't know if you do or not, but it's here right here in the end of the trivia. Inspired by the director's identical road trip and fateful brush with a woman who called herself Crystal Fairy. This is based on reality. There's no way half of this stuff is based in reality.
Then again...
But then again, it's plausible.
truth is stranger than fiction, you know.
Very true.
Alright, let's get on our last movie so I can get out of here.
That's more ways than one, folks.
Our last movie is Prince Avalanche, which is David Gordon Green's new movie. Two different sets of people know who David Gordon Green is. He has art house movies like Snow Angels, and I think he has another one he's really famous for. He was very, very critically acclaimed. Like, people were in love with him because he made these great indie movies. And Snow Angels is really powerful shit. Like, it is just no holds barred emotion and just, yeah, it's hard to take. And then he did Pineapple Express, which everybody still loved, but it was different. It was the same with a little bit of, Apatow came into his world and they made this concoction.
Yeah.
However, after that, he delved into Your Highness and The Sitter, and just got progressively worse.
He ended up on Eastern Bound and Down, too.
But they say this was his return to form, and while it's not like, reaching the peaks of his other movies, it didn't even reach the peaks of Pineapple Express to me, personally, but
wow.
It's definitely, he's back after Your Highness and The Sitter.
Well, that's good.
But the thing is they're all really good friends, because Jodie Hill and Danny McBride are producers on Prince Avalanche. And of course Paul Rudd's in it, and Paul Rudd has the Apatow Association.
Yeah.
It's basically two people. It's Paul Rudd and Emile Hirsch. And it's set in the 1980s, and there's this text that comes up that tells us about forest fires that happened in the area and basically destroyed all the houses and all the roads. And basically everything around them is just ash and nothingness.
Sounds fun.
So it's their job to come in and paint the lines back on the roads. Just the two of them.
I did not know that's what this was about.
And Emile Hirsch is Paul Rudd's girlfriend's brother. And is the reason he has the job, even though he's kind of a slacker, and Paul Rudd's kind of a workaholic, and Emile Hirsch is a slacker, so obviously these are clashing things going on.
Okay.
And that's basically what the whole movie is their relationship. Every now and then you have this truck driver character that comes in and out of the movie.
Mm.
And they have the, I don't know how to put this. Emile Hirsch kind of has this problem where I'll word it the way he words it. He's out in the forest in the middle of nowhere for God knows how long, and he's really, really horny. And the only person there is Paul Rudd.
Oh, God.
So there are these very awkward scenes where he'll wait for Paul Rudd to fall asleep, and then he'll start jerking.
Wow.
And then there's this really creepy scene later where they're mad at each other and they're fighting, and they're trying to figure out ways to hurt each other's feelings. And Paul Rudd finally says, "Well, I know what you're doing even when you think I'm not watching." Somebody out of Sundance said something very interesting, and it's a weird comparison.
Okay.
Somebody out of Sundance compared them to a very, very toned-down Farley and Spade.
The cover makes it look like the Mario Brothers.
Somebody else brought that up too, yeah. There's a lot of fighting. There's a scene where it happens twice. One of them, it's shoes on the other foot in one of them, but there's this running thing where one of them Paul Rudd has a boombox, and he has this tape that plays, where he's trying to learn a different language or something. And then Emile Hirsch takes the tape out and puts in a tape of rock. And then they fight over that, and then finally the running theme in the movie is, let's just enjoy the silence after a fight. So they just go in silence instead. I will say, this movie is, I don't know how to say this without seeming like I'm discriminating. The very start of this movie, and just a lot of things in general, some of you might know what I'm talking about. This movie can be relentlessly indie. You just keep waiting and waiting for an acoustic soundtrack by how indie this movie feels.
Ooh.
But, it doesn't, it's fine. I mean, there are some parts of the movie that are seem like it might be trying a little too hard to be charming, and then there's some parts that are genuinely charming. There's a really great scene where, they actually make this, I don't know how to go about saying this. I don't know if I want to say it as I don't know, it might be a spoiler. Okay. Emile Hirsch is gone, and Paul Rudd's working alone. And he's walking through the destroyed house. It's like what's left of him.
Okay.
And he sees this one lone old woman just digging through the remains of her house, and she's looking for her pilot's license, is what she says. And he, like, stays there all day with her and helps her clean up and look for her pilot's license, and they talk about everything, and then he eventually leaves. I don't know what this woman's purpose was in the movie exactly, because it's very abstract, but
Okay.
she comes back in the movie, and it's an interesting... They hint at... I don't know what... I have a theory, obviously, but I won't say it because it's a spoiler. So yeah, I think most people should be charmed by this movie. Like I said, sometimes it has its moments, and sometimes it has its not so great moments. But for the most part, I think people will find its charm appealing. And that would be our last movie.
Very nice. So, I guess we talked about next week. We have, hopefully, we know we have Mortal Instruments watching that on Wednesday. And hopefully The World's End and You're Next. And then we're going to be watching Blackfish and the Bling Ring sometime next weekend. So that'll be on the September 6th video. So...